Hey, wow, the room filled up. I was up front speaking with our keynote, David Coe, and when I came in, the room was empty. So I just stood up, turned around, and said, where'd you all come from? This is the 19th Black Hat being held in Singapore. It was the first location that Black Hat held outside of the United States back, I think, about 2002, 2003. And so I'd like to welcome you to the event. And if you've never been before, I'll just give you a quick rundown. What we try to do here is put you in proximity with subject matter experts, and then we want you to ask them questions, and we want you to challenge them. It's not, we're trying not to create a one-to-many. Yes, there might be the one-to-many, but we also want you to feel safe in asking challenging questions, because the speakers want to learn from you as well. And so to that end, after we're done with the keynote, there will be some Q&A, which I'm looking forward to with our keynote. The other thing is I normally talk about where people come from for the show, just to give you an idea of how broad and diverse attendance is. So for example, 81 countries, people from 81 different countries are here, which is amazing. I have at least one attendee. And another thing we do is, since we understand as an industry conference, we're not the most economical, and we want to bring the next generation of information security professionals and students into the community so they can get an idea of what it is. And so we offer scholarships and to try to get fresh people interested. And so we've given away 83 scholarships to people who wouldn't normally be able to attend. So if you're in the room and you are one of the 83, please raise your hand. Right on, let's give them a round of applause. So if you see them, you know, welcome them to the community. We're a very welcoming community. And because security has become so hyper-specialized, no one person knows it all. It's impossible. And so what ends up happening is the people that are most successful are sort of like professionally curious, right? Continuously learning is the buzzword. But in security, you really have to do that. I joke that I wish I was born a master woodworker, because I could go to sleep for 50 years and wake up and my skills would be worth more. But in security, I go to sleep for 5 weeks and I wake up and my skills are worth less. So you really have to kind of embrace this constant questioning, constant learning. And so don't feel bad if you hear some smart people talking and you don't understand what they're talking about, because I bet if you start talking, they're not going to understand half of what you're saying either. I want to run through just a couple of the countries that are here. These are countries that have only one person. Afghanistan, Albania, Algeria, Argentina. Well, okay, take it back. There's more than one person from Australia. Austria, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Belgium, Brazil, Brunei, Cambodia, Canada, China. I mean, it goes on and on. That tells you that what we're doing is important, right? The role in which we play in protecting either not just digital society or make money for our companies or protect the meme generators or whatever it is, we also are playing an important role in informing the public about what is safe and what's not safe. We have more and more governments coming to us or regulators saying, what should I do? And what's going on here is that traditionally you'd have lobbyists and you'd have industry trade groups that would come out with a position, and you might have like Greenpeace or some other, and they fight, and then the representatives in the middle try to make a decision. But now so much includes technology, human rights, is mostly a lot of it is a technology issue, right? Surveillance, targeting, great power competition. Developers are being targeted by North Korea and Russia. And so now all of a sudden it's happening to us. And so now we have a relevant voice. So partially what we're doing with some of these talks is we're trying to let you know in the bigger picture what we're doing has more meaning than just what the next quarter report is. And so with that, I have a couple opening thoughts, and then I'll introduce the keynote, and he'll take it away. You can probably guess, I'm a sort of a big picture guy, and one of the things I like to point out is that internet problems are global problems, in the sense that you can't solve all the problems in your country. In America, we have a lot of giant companies, internet companies, but you can't solve all the problems in America, right? A lot of things are manufactured in other countries. China can't solve all the problems. Europe can't solve all the problems. So we have to work together, or we're going to be forced to work together. And sometimes, even when the countries might be in conflict, you're still working together because we're all using essentially the same technology. And something that's come out of this is this dawning realization, and you hear it more and more from the US government, is that those closest to the problem, and the problem could be anything. The problem could be a vulnerability in an operating system. But those closest to the problem bear the most responsibility in fixing the problem. It's like, why do I, as a security researcher, 2 hops away from the people who can commit code, why am I trying to fix the problem? Right? The operating system vendor should fix the problem once and for all and eliminate the bug entirely, instead of the endpoint with the endpoint with the endpoint provider, right? Trying to apply 3 layers of Band-Aids. That might have worked, and I'm sorry if that's going to hurt your business model, but really, those closest to the problem should fix it. And I would not be surprised if future liability regimes and regulations start putting pressure on manufacturers to fix their own stuff and not wait for the market to produce a secondary product line to fix their problems. And I touched a little bit on this great power dynamic. I mean, this is heating up, right? It really kicked off with Russia invading Ukraine. And the realization there was some of the infrastructure in cloud that Ukraine had was in Microsoft, in Azure. And so the benefit of cloud is efficiency. The detriment of cloud is you get everybody's risk model. And in Ukraine's case, the risk model was Russia, right? So Microsoft Azure now has to deal with Russia. Right? Can you imagine pitching that to your product manager, right, your boss? Let's start a business, and potential adversaries are the most sophisticated in the world, China and Russia, and they're going to come after us. Isn't that a great business model? But that's what it's turned into, right? These multi-tenant systems have to be able to defend against the most sophisticated. And so that leads me to think, well, Microsoft's getting really good at hunting. Yes, they have problems, but they're getting good at hunting because they know people are coming after them. And when you hunt, you find things. And when you control your environment, Microsoft controls their environment. I'm just curious, show of hands, who thinks in the end, long term, is it you go to Microsoft's territory, right? In military terms, right? You're going to their terrain, their domain, and you're fighting Microsoft on the domain they control, on their servers that they control with their employees. Is that a winning strategy? Right? If you're Russia and you go to Microsoft and you fight Microsoft people, do you really think long-term you're going to win? Or do you think Microsoft's going to get better and better and better and better? And so I think it's going to have these weird second-order effects where they'll get some wins, but ultimately these cloud providers are just getting more and more sophisticated. And it has a weird impact in that the players below their capability are essentially squeezed out. They can't keep up with the security skills of the hyperscalers that have the Russian-style adversaries. And so it's this great power competition is squeezing and separating. I like to say it's sorting us into different buckets unintentionally. And so this great sorting that's occurring had this really strange unintended consequence I just want to point out. Microsoft releases a report. It's like a threat intel report. And they, here are the indicators of compromise. Here are these actors we see from Russia in the Microsoft network. You know, check your environment. And the community is like, great, thanks, Microsoft. And then the ICRC, the Red Cross, says, wait a minute, we can only do business with non-aligned parties. And Russia's in conflict with Microsoft. Oh, well, we can't use Microsoft anymore because they're aligned. They're in conflict. So who else are we using that's in conflict? 130 other IT providers, right, are essentially been sorted into picking sides. Either Russia's forced you to pick sides or forced Microsoft to pick sides. So now the Red Cross can't use unaligned IT providers. So they're going to have to build their own cloud, their own satellite, their own cell phone. Everybody's aligned at this point, right? This technology is political, and we're being sorted. And for organizations that are trying to remain neutral, it's basically impossible. So that's an interesting side effect of this great power competition. One final thought is that, and you notice I'm avoiding AI. It took some effort, but I'm avoiding AI in the keynote, because you're going to get enough of that here. Is that there's another sort of debate that's been going on. It's been playing out for a couple of years, and it looks like I'm betting in the next year or so there's going to be a winner. And the argument goes something like this. Exploit comes out, produce a mitigation. Exploit comes out, mitigation. CFI, forward edge CFI, ASLR, DEP, ROP, whatever. And it goes on and on and on. And the adversaries, within about 6 months, can get around it pretty reliably. Within 6 months, it's commodity. So you've got all these mitigations you're maintaining for years, forever, and every one of them has been circumvented, except the next one you release, and that's only like a 6-month situation. So do you do that forever? Do you maintain every mitigation forever, even though they've all been mitigated except for the most recent one? Right? You're up to 6, 7, 8% of CPU is running mitigations against stuff that's bypassed. And the mindset is essentially, okay, that's a waste of time. We've tried mitigations for 2 decades, 3 decades, and we're still applying mitigation band-aids. Let's start shifting our mindset to elimination. Let's start thinking about what it would take to eliminate bug classes, not mitigate an exploit. And once you start thinking about elimination instead of mitigation, you see the world differently. And that's what's happening largely in the United States. You saw CISA come out with a Secure by Design roadmap. We released a paper on memory-safe languages. The White House released a paper on memory-safe languages. There's a reason why governments are talking about move to memory-safe languages, because they're tired of mitigations. They need elimination. And yes, a memory-safe language might eliminate, 30% of the problem, but that's 30%. That just means we have to focus on the other 70. Let's focus on 70 instead of 100% of the problem. And so don't be surprised if you see more and more being written, more and more tool chains, more CI/CD pipelines. Everything is moving toward getting ready for Rust or Swift or Go, because this is the future. Because would you rather have the government spend billions of dollars moving to memory-safe languages, or just billions of dollars never eliminating a bug and just always being applied to a patch? And they're starting to get tired of it. And then the final thought is with the XZ stuff that came out. Yeah, just like Microsoft became the battleground for Russia, us and developers, we're in the fight and we might not even realize it, right? Some government ran a long game against the XZ developer because of a dependency that the system D folks implemented, right? A butterfly flaps its wing on a Git repo, and a bunch of developers are targeted by Russia or China or whoever it was. It's crazy. You can't predict those scenarios. You just have to assume this is the world we operate in. And that means, again, you can't really do it alone. And you see more and more interest in governments and open source projects and foundations in trying to understand dependencies, critical paths, and what they can do to try to either a Copilot style scanning for vulnerabilities or credentials. You're just going to see a lot more tooling and AI around trying to upscale like the open source ecosystem. And I think the SBOM is just sort of the beginning of that, and we're going to see a lot more. That's like the opening salvo in what governments are going to ask for. So with that said, it's really my privilege to introduce David Koh. He's the first commissioner for cybersecurity, and he's the founding chief executive for the Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore. And I always enjoy talking to David because Singapore is sort of like the opposite of America, where America's huge and slow, and we have really old technology, and Singapore's much smaller and a little bit more nimble. And so it's great to see the contrasts. What do they do? Can we fast follow them? Do they wait until we bake something in until they decide to buy it or act? Also, regionally, Singapore has to be very nimble in the region. Unlike the United States, that can kind of bumble along and just due to our size, get stuff done, Singapore has to be a lot more conscious of the political situation and who the different players are. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what he has to say. And then at the end of his session, we'll do some Q&A. Okay, so David is also, beyond being the chief executive for the CSA, he's also the chief digital security and technology at the Ministry of Communications and Information. And so as the commissioner, he has the legal authority to investigate cyber threats and incidents to ensure that essential services are not disrupted in the event of a cyber attack. So with that said, it's my pleasure to introduce David Koh. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I've got some prepared remarks, so I thought I'd hide behind this instead of standing in the middle. Going back to what Jeff said, I guess he's right. The scope of our work is getting wider and wider. No one knows all the answers. So that said, I guess I'm supremely qualified to do this job because I don't know most of the answers. Instead, what I guess I bring to the table is I know what questions to ask. And because I know so little, then I don't have preconceived ideas. So I guess that qualifies me to be doing the job that I have. But anyway, good morning to all the people. Welcome to Singapore and welcome to Black Hat Asia. It's an excellent opportunity for our community to share our thoughts, our findings, amalgamate our insights, and then with what we've learned, leave and move forward to better secure our world. As what Jeff said, no one knows all the answers, so we do have to work together. And that's a recurring theme which I will come back to in the course of my remarks. Technology has always been a double-edged sword. The invention of the knife helped us to hunt better, perform our tasks with more precision. However, it also has been used as weapons even until today. So the invention of the internet connected the world. It birthed new communities, facilitated new economic opportunities, but it's also created new channels for malicious actors to cause harm. Rising geopolitical tensions also encroach into cyberspace as the states and the big powers jostle and seek ways to inflict damage on each other. We've already seen such instances in the Russia-Ukraine war and indeed the current conflict in Gaza. Cybersecurity is therefore an imperative. Whenever we rely on digital technologies and connectivity, we expose ourselves to the risks of being attacked or compromised by malicious actors from all over the world. As cybersecurity professionals, our jobs is getting more difficult by the day. First, the threats that we face in cyberspace are growing and becoming more sophisticated. There is more that we have to defend against now. And second, the technological landscape is becoming more complex, and this affects the terrain that we as defenders must navigate. Let me elaborate on these 2 points. First, the growing threats in cyberspace. Malicious actors are adapting and evolving. They are increasingly becoming sophisticated, and the scale of their attacks is also going up. A risk of high-impact cyber attacks is correspondingly on the rise. In May of last year, it came to light that the IT environments of multiple critical infrastructure organizations was compromised. These organizations came from sectors, diverse sectors like communications, energy, transportation, water, wastewater, from Guam to the continental United States. This was achieved by using living off the land techniques, including stolen valid credentials and built-in admin tools native to the host systems. This allowed the threat actor to evade detection by the typical endpoint detection and response tools and achieve persistence. Fowler's techniques, such as living off the land attacks, are especially difficult to detect. Many organizations continue to use traditional security controls that guard against endpoint malware, allowing the malicious actor who uses such techniques to go undetected for days, weeks, months, or even years. Such techniques will allow potential threat actors to lie in wait, position themselves, and conduct future acts of sabotage, disruption, or destruction. The scale of attacks has also been increasing, fueled by shadow industries selling and sharing malicious tools, vulnerabilities, and exploits as a service. Threat actors now can purchase such resources. This lowers the barriers to entry for lower-skilled attackers so that they can enter the fray. According to IBM, ransomware as a service, affiliates can pay as little as $40 US a month for access to ransomware tools. So you don't even need to buy it, you can rent it, pay as you go. So every defender now needs to be prepared to defend against these sophisticated attacks, which are now accessible to even petty criminals. However, not all defenders, small and medium enterprises, for example, or individuals, are equal in skill or have the resources to adequately prepare for against these capabilities. So this leaves defenders increasingly vulnerable. It'll be remiss for any of us, to think that the threats are only of concern to those who operate critical infrastructure or they have high-value assets. With the rise of supply chain attacks, malicious actors are now casting a wider net, and they're going after organizations that may not have otherwise thought themselves as targets. In 2013, Target, the attackers exploited the network access provided to a third-party HVAC company which had weak security controls. These attackers then pivoted and entered the Target system and stole financial and personal information of 110 million Target customers. The rise of supply chain attacks also makes our enterprise cybersecurity even more challenging. Every organization must rely on an ecosystem of other parties, vendors, suppliers, your clients. And for each additional third-party organization that we do business with, then our attack surface expands and is not linear. Hackers can leverage the target's privileged access to infiltrate the networks and the customers and then expand their reach within. Verizon's 2022 Data Breach Investigations report said that business partners accounted for 62% of system intrusion incidents that it analyzed in 2021. So you can protect your own networks, but 62% of these your breaches come from somewhere else. This is a sharp increase from 39% in 2008. These examples are stark reminders of how we can't just rest on what we have achieved. We have to keep moving, like what Jeff said in his opening. Cyber threat actors also have raised their ambitions. In the last 3 years, we have seen more than our fair share of serious cybersecurity incidents. Many of these serious attacks have implications that are no longer contained within the digital domain, but they have spillover effects into the real world. In February this year, Change Healthcare, the largest clearinghouse for insurance billing and payments in the US, was attacked by ransomware. The attack left thousands of doctors, hospitals, and other health providers that depend on Change Healthcare for billing reimbursements without payment. This resulted in many providers and patients to see delays in their cash flow, or worse, delays in getting prescriptions filled or even procedures being conducted. One can imagine the potential life-threatening effects on patients' health outcomes that this could potentially have. Given the gravity and potential impact of these attacks, targeting these actors can become very lucrative for cyber criminals, especially if they can ransom the victims. Hackers claim that Change Healthcare paid over $22 million in ransom. These are enormous financial incentives, and they continue to fuel the criminal industry looking to leverage our cyberspace for gain. Verizon's report estimates that 95% of breaches it analyzed in 2023 were financially driven. It's therefore no wonder that such cyber attacks will continue to increase in sophistication, scale, and impact, because it pays. The technological landscape has also become increasingly complex, with the rapid development of emerging technologies such as cloud computing and, pardon me, artificial intelligence. Cloud computing was first commercialized. I was just commenting that it's impossible to make a tech speech without having AI in it. I tried. Cloud computing was first commercialized in 2006, and barely 2 decades later, by many estimates, 80% of all major organizations use some kind of public or private cloud. In 2027, the estimated global cloud market will surpass $1 trillion. Yet, few users truly appreciate the security risks that have the expertise and tools to implement the complex security controls that are needed to safeguard these virtual networks and their data. Adversaries are aware of this and are increasingly exploiting the user's cloud environments, including common vulnerabilities such as identity theft, insecure APIs, and misconfigured containers. CrowdStrike reported that the cloud environment intrusions have increased 75% from 2022 to 2023. This is why last month the Singapore government introduced a new bill in Parliament. This is the Cybersecurity Amendment Bill. And one of the major provisions in this amendment is that we will regulate cloud service providers for cybersecurity. This is in recognition that cloud service providers must be accountable for the cybersecurity of their infrastructure, their platforms and services which they provide, and be transparent about cybersecurity incidents that cause disruptions to their many tenant customers and the infrastructural services that they provide to many businesses and indeed individuals. Enterprises that use cloud services must also learn how to protect and secure themselves. In this regard, the Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore, CSA, has also launched 2 cloud security companion guides for organizations last year. This provides advisories to cloud customers to enable them to operate safely in the cloud. We are also on the cusp of an AI revolution. The possibilities offered are immense. McKinsey estimates the economic potential of generative AI at about $2.6 to $4.4 trillion annually, with 75% of the value falling across customer operations, marketing, sales, software engineering, and research and development. Use cases include customer service callbots, AI-generated publicity materials, prompt-engineered code, just to name a few. So it's not something that will have a specific use case, but it's something that will be applied across the board and affect all our lives. This is a space that's moving rapidly. If you had asked me in 2022, what are the biggest tech challenges affecting cybersecurity, AI would not have been what I've said. ChatGPT was not known or understood. A year after its release, ChatGPT has over 100 million weekly users and 2 million developers building on OpenAI's API. Organizations have also taken to this trend. A 2023 Ernst & Young study found that 99% of CEOs are making or planning some significant investments in generative AI. This underscores how the potential of AI has been recognized and is going to be adopted. However, we should not forget that there is a dark side to the use of AI as well. Microsoft and OpenAI found that threat actors have been using AI, including LLMs, to enhance their productivity for reconnaissance of their victims, perform adaptive scripting, and malware development, as well as to leverage machine learning to use and refine their own social engineering attacks and disseminate false information. In the face of the threats that I've spent the last few minutes talking about, the important question is this: then what should we do? What should we, the defenders, do about this myriad, complex environment that we operate in? Here in CSA, we say that cybersecurity is a team sport. In a digital world where we are all interconnected, we are only as strong as our weakest link. We are on the same side, and we have to work together. The government, industry, academia, individuals, all have our part to play. First, let me talk about what the government can do. As government, we set laws, regulatory frameworks to promote security and resilience in respect of the information infrastructure that we all depend on for our security, survival, our economy, and our way of life. This is why in Singapore, like many other jurisdictions, we regulate the cybersecurity of critical information infrastructure, CIIs for short. However, in a country as digitalized as Singapore, the security and resilience of non-CIIs is also important. This is why we are moving to regulate other types of digital infrastructure. This includes cloud services and data centers. This is on account that any compromise or disruption could lead to widespread implications for businesses and organizations and individuals who depend on their services. But regulation is not the only tool that we have. The Singapore government has also invested significantly in educating and equipping organizations and individuals with cybersecurity resources and toolkits so that they can help themselves. One example is the SG Cyberspace program. CSA has provided cybersecurity toolkits, cybersecurity self-assessment tools, and playbooks to help organizations conduct simulated phishing exercises, train their employees, for example, to spot and act against phishing attempts. Now, industry also has a key role to play. In the physical world, the defense of every citadel starts with analyzing the terrain and the advantages that it can give you. It's no different in cyberspace. But unlike the physical world, we have the ability to shape our digital terrain. Therefore, businesses should make sure that their offerings are secure by design, by default, and by deployment. Security has to be integrated into every part of the development lifecycle, from initiation through to deployment. This is why CSA published a Safe App Standard earlier this year. It's a set of standards developed in consultation with industry partners from the financial institutions, tech organizations, consultancy firms, and other agencies to guide local app developers on how to design safe mobile apps that will in turn secure the transactions that are made on them. We've also set up 2 cybersecurity certification schemes, the Cyber Essentials and Cyber Trust Marks, to encourage companies to take up the necessary cybersecurity measures and set themselves apart from their competitors. In an ideal world, we envisage a cyberspace where products and their settings are designed to be safe and secure from the onset and by default, where companies consider themselves to be cyber safe, and this is a differentiating value proposition against their competitors. While sophisticated users can adapt based on their own needs, less sophisticated users will be protected by default and will not have to worry about transacting in cyberspace. Sharing timely information on vulnerabilities, exploits, and incidents is also an important cybersecurity practice. This is because timely information sharing is key to disrupting threat actors who seek to use our interdependencies to move from target to target. In recent years, more and more industry players are starting to recognize the importance of information sharing and are working with and through governments to disseminate cybersecurity advisories. Last year, we in Singapore signed Memoranda of Understandings, MOUs, with Google, Microsoft, NTT, and Dragos to formalize our exchange of threat intel and work together to improve our collective situation awareness of cybersecurity threats and incidents. Now let me move on to developing the broader ecosystem. Malicious actors continue to innovate, and therefore so too must defenders. This is why conferences like this, Black Hat Asia, are important, where cybersecurity professionals and researchers like yourselves come together to discuss the latest trends in research, development, trends in the cyber world overall. An EY Parthenon study commissioned by CSA in 2022 estimated that Singapore's cybersecurity market size will have more than tripled from Sing 570 million in 2015 to 2 billion in 2022. To support this growth, Singapore believes strongly in investing in cybersecurity R&D. Last year, we unveiled Cyber SG Talent, Innovation and Growth Plan, the TIG plan. This is a comprehensive approach to developing the cybersecurity ecosystem in Singapore and existing innovation and talent development initiatives. A key program under the TIG plan is the Cybersecurity Industry Call for Innovation. Each year, we make 2 calls for proposals for cybersecurity companies for innovative solutions to address cybersecurity challenges of the day. Selected proposals receive funding of up to $1 million. Last year, we also launched a new program, Cyber Boost, under the TIG. The objective of Cyber Boost is to help cybersecurity companies develop, validate, and scale their solutions from Singapore. Participating companies receive training, mentorship, and networking opportunities, and more. To conclude, whatever your role is, practitioner, researcher, developer, or government servant, you have a part to play in this team sport that we call cybersecurity. It is a complex and challenging world out there that we operate in. But we are not helpless. We are not without agency. I believe that we, together, can make cyberspace safer, more secure, and trusted, so that we can live, work, and play safely and securely online. I wish you all fruitful discussions. Thank you for your contributions to building a safer cyberspace for all of us. Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, David. Now I get to ask you some questions, and you get to ask me questions. And then we get questions from the audience. There's going to be a microphone, I think, on each side. So when you approach the microphone, please just identify yourself and ask a question. Not, this is more of a comment than a question. No, we want questions, not comments. Okay, first up, one of the things I've noticed is really the 2 speeds of government. Right? One is this norms building takes forever, try to create the UNGGE, and the other one is you just talked about all these initiatives you've rolled out in the last year or 2. Right? How do you mentally shift gears?
Thanks, Jeff. Well, first of all, it's true. I was telling Jeff, we have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. Singapore is a small country. We're a price taker. So if we try to do things at the global stage, to be honest, it's limited. But at the same time, as I said, we're not without agency. So we do have the means to do something within our own patch. So we need to operate at both levels. So let me begin at the international stage. First of all, it may come as a surprise to some of you that actually cyberspace isn't a Wild West. There are rules that are being discussed, and actually there's a whole set of norms of responsible state behavior. These have been discussed at the United Nations for the last 20 years. So in 2015, they came out with a set of 11 norms of responsible state behavior, a combination of thou shalt not do this and thou shalt do such things, which actually has been presented to the United Nations General Assembly. And in ASEAN, our leaders have endorsed these 11 norms of responsible state behavior, and now we're in the process of implementing among the 10 nations. But as you said, this is firstly about exciting as watching grass grow, and it's moving at about the same speed. But nonetheless, it's something that is worth doing, and something that we need to be part of, because if whatever rules that come out with respect to the internet affect all of us. So that's happening and moving at a certain speed. We need to be part of it, but at the same time, we're not holding our breath. Meanwhile, in our own jurisdiction, we can't wait for the world's problems to be solved by the United Nations, at least not in cyberspace. So we can and we should do some things. So in 2018, we passed the Cybersecurity Act so that we have a law governing what's most important, providing essential services to Singapore and to Singaporeans. So this is the Cybersecurity Act of 2018. We've been implementing this for the last 6 years. This looks after primarily critical infrastructure. But that, we realize, isn't enough, because a lot of the society, businesses are non-CIIs. So what do we do with that? So we're trying to encourage people to move towards things like differentiation, better cyber hygiene, etc. So two of the examples I gave were Cyber Trust Mark and Cyber Essentials. The starting point is that a lot of businesses, small and medium enterprises, know that cyber is important, but then they don't know exactly what to do. So my guys came up with 2 standards which are good enough, Cyber Essentials, and if you want to differentiate yourself or you're operating trusted services, then you aim for a Cyber Trust Mark. And the hypothesis is that, you know, this is something that can guide enterprise as to what is
and it's catching on, right? I think some other countries are following suit.
Yes, right. So we aren't the only ones. The UK has been doing their version of Cyber Essentials for the last 10 years. Australia has similarly come out with something like. So all of us globally, as Jeff was saying earlier, facing the same challenges. So I think we, to be very honest, we copy each other's playbooks. There's no need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, and so do you find that there's certain countries or companies that are willing to move faster? Are there ones that are super conservative? Like, how do you see this playing out? Is it like there's the fast followers, the early adopters?
So I think your comments earlier on were sharp and on target. I think one of the big advantages that we have in Singapore is that we are small and nimble. I think in the physical world, in the kinetic world, size is to your disadvantage. You're too small, you don't have the resources, etc. But in the digital domain, actually all of us are facing similar challenges, and it actually, being small helps. You can firstly coordinate better. Don't get me wrong, interdepartmental stovepipes and rivalries, scalable. We have them in Singapore as well.
Right.
But the difference is that we can probably lock up most of the senior people in the one room, smaller than this, and
sort it out.
And lock the doors and don't allow us out until we sort it out. So in many cases, we have been able to resolve and work for the broader benefit. So I think it does allow Singapore to move faster. Second, I think our government's mindset is that we are prepared to experiment to some extent with respect to policy. So we don't need to work out the 100% answer before we start moving. So the cyber labeling scheme is an example. My guys came to me with a proposal. Look, people don't know what is a cyber secure product. I admit that it resonated with me because just before that, I was trying to buy a home router for myself. And since I'm in charge of cybersecurity, I thought I should buy one that's cyber secure. Now, I'm an engineer by training. I looked at the boxes, spent like half an hour at the shop looking at the boxes. I gave up, all right? I couldn't tell which was the more cyber secure product. So I gave up, came back to the office and sent an email to one of my guys. It's like, which one should I buy? Okay, all right, so I have the benefit, but the average person doesn't have this benefit. So my guys came with a proposal. Let's try to demystify this so that if a consumer does want to buy a product that's more cyber secure, a home router, a baby monitor, whatever, then there's an easy way for him or her to tell. So they said, no need to reinvent the wheel. Take a leaf from the energy efficiency model. You buy a fridge, you buy a washing machine, there's 1 tick, 2 ticks, 3 ticks, 4 ticks. It doesn't take rocket science to figure out that 4 ticks is better than 3 ticks, etc. So we did the same thing for cybersecurity. Now, the senior guys were trained over the years to ask questions. So we had a bunch of questions. It's like, Are you sure this will work? Who's going to pay for the certification? Do we need to? Cybersecurity is moving. Once we give it 4 ticks, 4 stars, then tomorrow a new vulnerability comes up. What will happen? What about our liability? So we threw them out. But they kept coming back, okay? And one of my bosses taught me that, well, if you have 2 choices, either lead or get out of the way. I decided to get out of the way. And then we went up and did this as a hypothesis. Now, the key thing is that our cyber labeling scheme is not mandatory. It's a purely voluntary scheme. And we tried it out, and after, now it's coming to 2 years, we've got like 400 over products coming in, including some from large OEMs, Lenovo, Philips, Google, all wanting to put the Singapore cyber labeling scheme on their products. So the hypothesis is correct. If you build it, they will come. And if you want to, and what we see is that people are using this as an opportunity to differentiate themselves as a competitive advantage. So this is a key point. Cybersecurity, we view ourselves very much as a cost center. It's a burden, it's something to do. But here, my guys were able to turn it around, and it becomes a value proposition. If I'm more cyber secure, then maybe it's something where it's worth differentiating.
Yeah, take some money out of marketing instead of... Okay, let's try to open it up to the audience. Otherwise, I'll keep asking questions. So if anybody has a question, Mr. Koh, please go to the microphone. Otherwise, I'll ask you sort of a somewhat follow-up question to a remark I made in the opening, which is this idea of sort of external forces sorting you into picking sides. And a concern I have heard in Singapore is that we don't want to get sorted and then have to pick a tech stack. Like if it's sort of China versus the West, and we're all using essentially the West tech stack, and there becomes the Chinese tech stack, now what? We have to have double the developers, and like nobody likes where that's going.
Great question. First of all, I wanted to say that, as you were making that comment about us being sorted, I was thinking that maybe the black hat logo has to be changed next year. You have the Harry Potter sorting hat,
that's right.
instead. No, I think that there is a huge challenge with respect to tech bifurcation. I think that from a Singaporean's perspective is one of the biggest challenges. If you look at it from a historical perspective, Singapore has benefited from being an open economy. If you look around the building that we're in, the whole of the city center, we have become rich because we have been open and able to trade across. And a lot of it actually is because we're at the center of major trading routes, and we've benefited from this. So it is our economic and strategic interest to continue this ability to benefit from the trade, have an open economy. Tech bifurcation actually goes diametrically in the opposite direction. Now, I want to unpack this a little bit. If you think about it, we are concerned about 2 elements. One is the continued free flow of ideas, education, etc. But at the same time, we're also concerned about security. I believe you can have your cake and eat it too from a tech perspective. How so? Well, we are concerned about security. But when you talk about security, what are we actually concerned about? It's the supply chain where the kit is made, right? So you have to secure your supply chain, make sure it's from your trusted suppliers, etc. But on the other hand, I think it is imperative for us to maintain interoperability. As tech people, you can understand this. I'm old enough to remember that when you went to Japan, you had to use another phone because the tech stack was different. And I don't want to go back to those days, all right? I want my phone to be able to be used whether I'm in Tokyo, in Beijing, or in New York or London. If you don't want to use the Chinese equipment, for example, you don't buy Huawei. You can buy Apple, but it's made in China as well. Well, that's another issue,
right?
Okay? Now, I think interoperability is important because we want to maintain a common internet. It gives huge opportunities for education, for the social interaction.
Yeah, the fosters innovation. If it's an open standard, nobody has...
Exactly. So we have to maintain that interoperable. And I also want to go down a second level into what's the kind of data that we're talking about. So I think broadly there's 3 buckets of data. there's data that pertains to national security. Oh, yes, that needs to be protected. It needs to be sovereign, on-prem, etc. It doesn't need to be interoperable. My national security standards are not, my encryptors are not interoperable with yours. They're supposed to protect it from other people. Then on the other side is stuff that's data that's for economic, social, educational purposes. I think those can and should be openly shared so that we can benefit from the innovations, the education, all the cat videos that you want to watch, etc. All of that should be. The third bucket, somewhere in between, personal data. I think different, we're still coming to grips with that because certain regimes like GDPR in the EU, they take personal data security to a different level, but I think that can be treated separately. But on one hand, national security issues which can and should be protected, but on the other hand, it doesn't mean that it's one size fits all. So I think we can and we should aim for interoperability in standards so that we can achieve that and reap the benefits of that. But at the same time, look after our supply chain so that we can look after security.
Let's go to the gentleman on the left.
This is Tobias Gondrom. I'm just speaking as a personal resident here, not in a corporate thing. I liked your statement when you said, like, when we build it, they will come. And I think you did quite a number of things in Singapore, right, where when you build it, they will come. Being the CII, enabling actually more trust in the ecosystem and therefore for more business and digitization, the certifications that you mentioned. There's a third one that you built, which is actually a digital authentication, SingPass in particular. And I think it enables many things. But here comes my question. I think there's still some challenges in this. For example, how much facial verification, how many requests can be done per month. Do you have a vision for driving SingPass further so that also more people can come and digitization can grow from that? Is there a vision from your side?
Right. Thanks very much for the question. If you think we've done some things right, please tell my boss. All right. No, but yes, I totally agree that SingPass has been one of the killer apps in terms of Singapore's digital journey. First of all, a disclaimer, SingPass doesn't come under my agency, it comes under GovTech. All right, they've done a wonderful job. If I would say that just the other day, my wife and I had to provide some documents. I forget for exactly what reason. And after dinner, we went upstairs and then we went on the computer and we did it in half an hour. All right, we went to the bank, got certain documents, went to CPF, got our retirement information. We didn't even have to download it and print it because you just had to put it in a PDF and then we sent it over. Everything was done in half an hour. As we were done, I was telling my wife, you know, in the old days, we would have had to take half a day's leave. All right, drive to the bank, get it certified, bring it over, see an officer in CPF, get that certified, and then bring it over. And probably you forgot something, you know, and you need something to be signed and certified all over again. But that is the benefit, and someone my age can remember how we used to do it. And there's been, my kids don't know that we used to do it this way, and to them, this is an expectation. So this is one of the challenges with respect to the digital. As each generation comes up, they just expect it to get better, faster, more convenient. From a security perspective, that demand for the speed, the convenience, actually is in direct tension with the need for security. Same for SingPass. So the question now is, as SingPass rolls out for more and more things, then how do we secure it? And as it rolls out for more and more things, it becomes a more lucrative target. The attackers know that if you can compromise SingPass, you can unlock many other things. So that becomes a more and more attractive target. So we're trying to balance that. In fact, we just had a discussion as to whether we should roll out SingPass for more commercial entities. And I think the concern is that if you do this, then what happens if the commercial entity is breached? Are there liabilities involved since the breach came perhaps from SingPass, etc.? So this is a balance we're trying to strike. No easy answers. On the one hand, if we leverage SingPass to do more and more things, it's convenient for Singaporeans, Singapore residents. But on the other hand, it becomes a concentration risk, and then the question are lock-on concerns. So long way to say that we're still working on the vision, but I think we are very...
it sounds like you're doing the same trade-off analysis that everybody else is doing on, there's no easy one size, yeah.
No, so absolutely. So trade-offs to me are the key to cybersecurity. I think it's a trilemma. There's no such thing as 100% cybersecurity. If you want 100% security, leave the computer in the box. Once you take it out and you start using it, it's useless if it's in a box. Once you take it out, start using it, you take on risk. So you're always trying to balance usability and the risk. And oh, by the way, that's cost as well. So this is the trilemma you have to balance.
Let's go over here on my right.
Hi, good morning. My name is Kelsey Ecclesiastri. I flew all the way from the States, actually, to be here. I'm one of the 80 scholarship recipients, so thank you very much. Also, thank you for your talk. I enjoyed it. And while I was standing here, you actually answered like 3 of the questions that I wrote down. So I do have another one for you. Excuse me. So we did speak about how education is a large part of protecting the population, but it seems like phishing and scams and other kinds of trivial attacks are made possible. And in fact, like, we can have many examples of how, like, oh my goodness, this, like, Uber got attacked last year and it was just because of a phishing scam that really could have been avoided. So how can we reach out to individuals, businesses, and vendors that don't prioritize cybersecurity?
It's a great question. I think that it's a generational issue. Deep down inside, I believe that it's a generational issue. What do I mean? I don't speak tech natively. My kids speak tech natively, right? I work in tech, but I'm not a native to this environment. I'm an emigree. I still speak it with a bit of an accent. But I think my kids will grow up in a world where they are native and they understand. What do I mean? I think that if you think about it, we don't have the instincts for cybersecurity. You look at the physical world. So, for example, this morning, you left your home or hotel room, you closed the door, you locked it. If you drove here, you locked your car, etc. Later on at lunch, you won't leave your wallet or purse lying around. These are physical security things that we naturally do. We have the instincts for it. If you are on a street somewhere in a strange city, and it's dark, you're a bit more concerned and you look around. Where do we learn all these instincts from? We didn't attend a course by the Singapore Police Force. We learned it from our parents as we were growing up. They taught us what to do. But when it comes to cybersecurity, we didn't learn anything from our parents. If anything, we're teaching our parents what to do and what not to do. So this is the challenge. Now, I think that, and because of that, when we go online, we don't have the instincts to see what is safe, what is a bit more sus, what is a bit dodgy, etc. I believe that over time, we will build up these instincts and capabilities. But until then, we're operating in this. We've been thrust into this 21st century.
There's an observation that in real life, you can look around and you can see people kind of, what's going on over there? Or it's slightly, you get some sort of a feedback cycle, but the feedback cycle online is disconnected, right?
Yes.
You click on a link and you just screwed up. Yeah. But you might not ever know that, right? 2 months go by and something bad happens to your bank account. You can't tie that bad behavior back to the thing you did 2 months ago. So you can't really reinforce your learning. And I remember decades ago we were joking that if somebody put like a little vibrating mechanism in your mouse and you tied that to like your antivirus or something, like you're going to the browser and you're about to click on it and your mouse is like, you're like, oh, wait, hey, how come it's over level 30? It's only supposed to vibrate over level 30. I'm doing something wrong. You need to create these feedback cycles that we don't really have.
Absolutely.
Okay, last question on the left here.
Thank you. My name's Lucas from Australia. So my question is it's not a statement. So we've seen the secure by design. It's actually really good. It's very much a carrot approach, and you're right, it's a differentiator. We've seen it coming out in Australia and other parts of the world as well. And it's kind of like a 2-part question, so sorry if it's the last one as well. But the first part is, can you talk through behind, and this one's to yourself as well, Jeff, behind the scenes when the governments are talking about secure by design, having it mandatory or not, because you have the carrot, but then sometimes you do need that stick. And eventually, do you see it becoming a mandatory aspect of any kind of design of virtual products?
I think the short answer is yes. The question is, how long are we going to take to get there? I was talking with Jeff before this session, and we were talking about SBOM, secure by design, etc. So in my keynote, I said that Singapore is a small country. We're a price taker. What it means is that, in theory, intellectually, we understand that we want stuff to be secure by design. But as a small country, we don't have the wherewithal to say, we want stuff to be secure by design, otherwise we won't buy it. Microsoft, Google are going to say, fine, we won't serve the Singapore market. It's a blip as far as our financials are concerned. It's a bit of a loss, all right, but that's about it. So if they have to make that trade-off, they're not going to come here. But when a big country like the US says that we want the SBOM, we want secure by design, then we violently agree with this, and we will support the efforts, and we will lend our voice to that chorus of like-minded countries, jurisdictions who say that, yes, we support this, and these are the reasons that we will want this. I think it's important to say and speak up, because then you get that feedback loop to the industry to say that this is what is desired, this is why, and it's not just the US, it's not just the White House saying this, but this country, that country, etc., and a diverse group of countries saying that this is good. I think that's the first step, to build that feedback loop. Because, to be honest, if you don't give the feedback, then it's hard work to want to create the necessary. And the next thing I'll say is that no initiative, no direction, no statement from the White House or from Singapore CSA is going to be perfect from the beginning, right? I'm sorry. There's a saying in government, if it's 70–80% there, is good enough for government work, okay? Don't quote me. But in some respects, yes. And the reason is that if you want us to develop it to the nth degree until it's 100% correct, it's going to take forever. So we have to move up and start and then evolve from there.
Yeah, there's the saying in America, which is, or generally is, politics is the art of what's possible, not what's perfect. And it's the same in tech. All right, so we're out of time. Let's give David a round of applause. And then next up, the next sessions start at 10:20 on this floor. Across the way, the Expo Center is open now. And then tonight at 4:30 in the business hall, we have a welcome reception. So if I don't see you now, I'll see you this evening at 4:30. And thank you very much.